Channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 18th of September of 2025. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to discuss several statements, very important statements that were made by the President of Ukraine, Zelensky. He said that he has two plans. My plan A is to end the war this year. Plan B is 120 billion. To fight for a whole year, we need 120 billion, 60 billion Ukraine's budget, another 60 billion I need to find for 2026. Putin will destroy our energy and railway infrastructure. We expect strikes. So this is the statement of Zelensky, but telling the truth, and according to information we have, most likely Zelensky will choose plan B and he will prolong the war for another year. Because, for example, today we got another very important statement that Zelensky has started recruiting men over 60 years old for the front line. The procedure for contracting this category of Ukrainians has been officially launched. In July, Zelensky signed a law the older generation of Ukrainians to be sent to the front. It was previously reported that girls aged 18 to 24 began to be recruited under contract. So obviously, this category of Ukrainians is much more cheaper in comparison with men of 30-40 years old, because obviously they're stronger and most likely their salaries are higher. So that is why, just from this perspective, Zelensky will try to reduce the military budget for the next year by recruiting old people over 60 years and girls between 18 and 24. Another important thing is that Zelensky stated that the first arms delivery to Ukraine under the Pearl program is expected to include Patriot and HIMARS missiles. Once again, Zelensky expects that Russia will destroy energy and railway infrastructure, so that is why he needs missiles for Patriot systems and for HIMARS systems as well. So once again, most likely Zelensky will choose the plan B, which means that the next year we're going to see the special military operation to be continued. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground. During the previous 12 hours, lots of very interesting changes on the ground were recorded. And first, let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction. The armed forces of the Russian Federation continue their assault operation on the city by the name of Stepnogorsk. I would like to remind you that just 2 days ago, the Russians destroyed the only bridge along M18 road that connected the city of Stepnogorsk with the mainland. And most likely, the Ukrainian logistic capabilities collapsed completely or about to collapse. So most likely now it's very difficult for Ukrainians to bring additional forces, fresh forces and munition in the southern direction towards the city of Stepnogorsk with the purpose to organize effective defense. During the previous 12 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded in the city by the name of Primorsk. Here we can see how Russian soldiers were moving between buildings and taking under control additional structures. So this episode took place exactly in this point. The Russians captured this part of Primorsk. Based on this video, we adjusted the map. As for the southeastern direction of the Stepnogorsk area, we can see this video where Russians were attacking with FPV drones Ukrainian positions to the south of the only Stepnogorsk citadel, the high-rise building area. Based on this video, we haven't adjusted anything, but now we see that the Russians began clearing the settlements and buildings to the south of the citadel with the purpose to begin offensive operation on this area in coming days. So we believe that Ukrainians will not be able to hold their positions in the city of Stepnogorsk for a very long period of time. Not just because Russian very high activity, but also due to the fact that currently lots of fresh forces and units were recorded in the Zaporozhye direction. The Russians are bringing more and more forces in this area with the purpose to reinforce their offensive operation, most likely with the purpose to improve their positions in the western Zaporozhye direction in the area of responsibilities of the group of forces Dnipro. Now let's talk about the eastern Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 24 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded between the villages of Novoivanovka and Novonikolaevka. This report was published by pro-Ukrainian resources. Here we can see how the map was adjusted, so these fields were taken by the Russians and the armed forces of the Russian Federation continue advancing further in the western direction. These coming days, we are waiting for additional updates regarding the settlement of Novoivanovka and the settlement of Berezova. But I would like to to remind you that Ukrainians brought additional forces in this area, and most likely the Ukrainians are planning to carry out a counter-offensive operation with the purpose to at least slow down the Russians of the group of forces east. Now let's talk about the Novopavlovka direction. Very interesting updates are coming from this area. According to information we have, during the previous nights, the armed forces of the Russian Federation managed to improve their positions significantly along the river of Volcha. So this is the situation by the end of the 14th of September. This is basically the beginning of the Russian Novopavlovka offensive operation. By the end of the 14th of September, according to information we have, the Russians restored control over the villages of Zeleny Gai and the village of Iskra. This video was published also by the Group of Forces East. The next day, the pro-Ukrainian resources reported that the Russians continued their offensive operation. They crossed the river of Volcha and captured several buildings in the area of the village of Ivanovka. This is very important foothold because this foothold is located on the Ukrainian side of the river of Volcha, and most likely the Ukrainians didn't expect that the Russians were able to do this. And today, by the beginning of the 18th of September of 2025, we got report that the Russians managed to improve their positions in this part of the settlement and to force Ukrainians to fall back even further. This report was provided by pro-Russian resources. So we see that the Russians continue advancing, and now the Ukrainians most likely are thinking where can they get additional forces with the purpose to stabilize this area as well. As we discussed in the previous videos, if Russians are able to take this village under complete control, this can lead to complete collapse not just of the Zaporozhye direction but also of the entire Dnipro direction. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the city of Pokrovsk. If you remember, just yesterday we discussed that the Russians launched their third attempt of assault operation on the city of Pokrovsk. And for example, this information yesterday was confirmed by several pro-Russian resources. The pro-Russian resources adjusted their maps like this, showing that the Russians improved their positions in the western part of the city and in the southern part as well. So this is the third attempt of Russian offensive operation, but this time most likely the Russians are tasked to defeat the Ukrainians completely and to break the entire situation. And by the morning of the 18th of September of 2025, we got first geolocations that confirm Russian control and Russian progress on the ground in the southern part and in the western part as well. As for the southern part, the pro-Ukrainian resources published this video. Here we can see how Ukrainians of 68th Jaeger Brigade were attacking Russian positions in the central part of the city of Pokrovsk with FPV drones. So this building was geolocated, and based on this video we came to conclusion that the Russians secured this territory, and based on this video we colored the map like this way. Furthermore, another very important video was published from the most western or the northwestern part of the southern Pokrovsk, and here we can see how two Ukrainian soldiers were moving from the southern part of the city in the northern part, and then Ukrainians were ambushed. We will not watch this video till the end due to violence and due to casualties. But if we return back to the map, the Ukrainian soldiers were moving from the southern part, as I told you, using something like this. This is the road of their movement. And right exactly in this point, the Ukrainian soldiers were ambushed. So the Ukrainians once again were moving from the south in the northern direction, and they were ambushed exactly at this point. Based on this video, we added some adjustments on the map, but they are added softly. So we don't know for sure how exactly the Russians answered this western part of the city of Pokrovsk. We just added this small road of this red area, showing us approximately how exactly the Russians could get there during the previous phases of the special military operation and assault operation on the city of Pokrovsk. Anyway, this is very important because now we understand that Ukrainians that were moving in the northern direction, they thought that this area was secured and was secure for them, but they were ambushed, which means that currently there are no more territories, streets and buildings on the city of Pokrovsk where the Ukrainians can feel themselves as in the area of secured area. So which means that the defense of the city of Pokrovsk is about to collapse, at least of its southern part. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Liman-Sivas direction. Currently, there are very heavy clashes in this area. During the previous 24 hours, lots of very interesting updates were recorded. The Russians were attacking Ukrainians in the area of the city of Yampol, and furthermore, when talking about the city of Yampol and the city of Siversk, we still haven't received anything that can confirm the presence of the armed force of the Russian Federation on the territories of both settlements. But yesterday, the chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, Valery Gerasimov, came to the area of the responsibilities of the Group of Forces Center with the purpose to inspect the forces, and he made lots of very interesting statements. He stated that assault units of the Southern Force Group are advancing in the village of Siversk. So he's trying to say that the Russians are already on the territory of the city of Siversk and the clashes are taking place exactly there. Furthermore, he stated that the Group of Forces West is advancing in the city of Kupiansk, and that the Russians, our troops, answered and are conducting combat operations in the village of Yampol. So according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, the Russians are already on the territory of Siversk and already on the territory of Yampol. Currently, there are very heavy clashes, and according to him, the Russians most likely will be able to force the Ukrainians to fall back. As for the real changes on the ground, we have some in the village of Shandrigalova. In this video, we can see how Russians were taking under control additional positions in the southern central part of the village and the very heavy fire of Ukrainian FPV drone operators. Based on this video, we came to the conclusion that the Russians secured the northern and the northeastern parts. The Russians were moving from the north and they answered this building under very heavy fire of Ukrainian FPV drones operators. Based on this video, based on these updates, we see that most likely in coming days the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back completely from this side of the river of Nitris towards more reliable positions around the settlements of Novoselovka and Drobышeva. It seems that the battle for the settlement of Shandrigalova is coming to the logical end. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day.